To show you a little bit now about the timeline. First of all, how to make sure that your video and your audio clips are lined up. Now, what I've got here is I just went into the clone video, and I'm going to move around one of the audio tracks a little bit, and then I'm going to realign them, and I'll just show you how to do that. Now, first of all, I just want to play with the audio, and I don't necessarily want to unlink them. If you actually want to work on just one track and not affect the others, you can lock the other tracks. And that's what I'm going to do right here. And then I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to move this off kilter a little bit. And then I'm also going to crop it a little bit so I get lost. And then I'll move this in here. Now, I don't know if I've done it enough that you could actually see it, but yeah, my voice would not
Doug, what do you think about this?
Link up at all with the visuals. So I'm going to leave that little bit cut off, and I'm just going to zoom in here just so you can see what's going on. And you can see that there are numbers here. There's a -4 and a +4. And you just simply have to make sure that you drag one back and forth so that you line them up. And it really helps to zoom in to do this. And well, just first shot I got it, but let's say it's a little bit further out again. And you get the plus and the minus here. Just move these around until you can actually get them into place. Sometimes there's a little bit of trial and error. There you go. I'm going to show you now how to play around on the timeline and make a soundtrack for a silent video, The Bats. And you can see I've got the different versions of it here. And we'll just make kind of a random soundtrack and play around a little bit with the soundtrack so you can actually get a sense of what you can actually do on the timeline. And I'm going to open up here. I've got a folder full of different sounds. Now, I've got one here called Jetpack Passage. That sounds pretty good for a bat. Quite literally here, you can actually just drag it onto the timeline and drop it right under the bat there. Or, what you could do is if you, let's say, we'll try insect right here, put it onto this window, and then make sure that your cursor is where you'd want it. But if there's a soundtrack in the way, it will overwrite that. Click there, the insert, and there it is. And so we can actually watch the video with Jetpack. And insects. So, first of all, I would say that the insects are just a little bit too fast for that second option there. So we'll just bring the cursor back to here. We're going to take the razor blade. We'll expand this a little bit. And we're going to cut the sound right there. And then when it gets to the next one, then we'll do the same. We'll cut it here. Now, one thing we could do is we could just actually expand the speed of the clip itself. I'm going to click onto here. Now, in this particular case, I don't want the ripple edit in effect. I don't want to push this clip away, so I'm going to undo that and then just change the speed. And what will happen, it'll just change the speed of the clip within the clip itself, but it won't actually make it longer. So I think we want this to be about 50% of the speed. There you go, and that should sound a little bit slower. And this one, we're going to make these even a little bit more out of sync here. And I'm going to make this the speed at 20%. And because I didn't have a clip in front of there blocking it, whether I had the ripple effect in or not, it'll still stretch it out. So we could just kind of shorten that there. So you get the idea there. Now I'm going to drop just a few more sounds onto the timeline, and we're going to play with them a little bit here. So you can take these and you can move the balance up a little bit to here. Okay. Then you're going to have a number of different tracks, and you can keep adding. Right now we've got 4 tracks, but we will want a few more. So sometimes it's good just to experiment. You'll find that sounds repeat themselves in nature. There was once I was looking for a whale sound, so what I did was I just actually took the sound of a loon here, and you can listen to a loon. Now I'll crank it up so it records well. So I'll take this soundtrack here, and what I'm going to do is Command R. I'm going to change the speed till about 20%, and I'm going to reverse it. You can experiment a lot with animal sounds to make a whole host of different animals. Now, one of the things that you can play with is just something like reverb or offsetting, so you can create discords when you just put 2 soundtracks slightly off from each other. And I'm going to copy and paste this. And I'm going to put it right underneath. And I'm just going to offset them by just a little bit. And you'll hear a certain reverb comes into that. So I think if I just move it over just a couple of frames here. And then you listen to it, and you'll actually hear that it echoes slightly. So if you're doing some sort of sci-fi or something like that, that's kind of a handy effect to have. Now, another thing that you could do is just change the timing very slightly of each one. See, that's at 20%, and then if you made this one at 21, or let's say even we'll boost it up a bit, maybe 22, and you'll hear that over time they change just a little bit. So you hear at the beginning it sounds in sync, and then as it moves on, it changes. And I'll put one more on, and then I will export it and show you what you can play with from there. Now, if you really want to look a little bit more carefully into the soundtrack, you can actually expand it by moving this little toggle here. And this is the sound of a sparrow. And there you can see the... So, I want to cut out some of those middle parts, and that's where it really helps to expand it so you can see the soundtrack. Okay, now each one of these I'm going to expand at a different speed. Now, this one, and I want the ripple effect 50%. almost a little bit human. Now, if you don't want to change the pitch, but you still want to change the length, you can actually achieve that by maintain audio pitch, and then it just simply stretches it out rather than overall changing the sound of it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack these, and then we can export it if you want to make this into a single soundtrack here. And you can even actually repeat some of these over and over just so you can use them multiple times. Okay, now we're going to listen through it once, and I'm going to export this entire thing. Now in this particular one, I don't like that high pitch, but it may come in useful. So what I might do is just simply make a copy of all of this here, and just take that one high-pitched one and revert it back to kind of a low sound. And then now I'm going to export this entire little clip here, and then we can take those clips that I've exported and reuse them.